called The Ministry of the Church. And I'm going to read from the book of Romans, and some of you will know this passage. It's pretty familiar for some people. But in the book of Romans, in the 12th chapter, starting with the first verse, it says, I appeal to you, therefore, brothers and sisters, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. For by the grace given to me, I say to everyone among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think with sober judgment, each according to the measure of faith that God has assigned. For as in one body we have many members, and the members do not all have the same function, so though many are one body of Christ, and individually members of one another, having gifts that differ according to the grace given to us, let us use them. If prophecy, in proportion to our faith. If service, in our serving. The one who teaches, in teaching. And he goes on, and he talks about all the things that people have gifts in doing. And I get it, because you're sitting on a really hard pew right now, and some of us are probably a little tired from all of the whole week. But here's the interesting part about what Paul was saying. I don't know if you've ever noticed that in the Bible, there are a lot of parables, but there's also a lot of strange things, concepts that come up. They're paradoxes. They don't seem to fit. What is a living sacrifice? Isn't the idea of a sacrifice that it actually dies? But Paul talks about being a living sacrifice, to not be conformed to this world, or this age, if you will. And he's appealing to the Romans, the church in Rome, and saying this because we all are part of the ministry of the church. I'll say that again. We're all part of the ministry of the church. Some of us are confused because they see this guy up here preaching, and they think, well, it's on him. And church will rise and fall on whoever's up here speaking. But that's not true. Paul says to us, each one of us has a gift. Now, some of us might say, I'm not sure what that gift is. I haven't figured it out. By the way, your gift may have nothing to do with your actual employment, just so you know. They don't always coincide with each other. But each one of us has a gift. And as each one of us has a gift, we're supposed to use it. That's how he describes the church. He describes the church as a body. And he uses this example. He said the body's made up of all kinds of different parts. Anybody have any aches and pains? I guess I'm the only one. Clearly I'm working too hard. But the reality is, if you stub your toe, what happens? That's all you think about. This ridiculous digit that's on the bottom of your foot, you can't think of anything else but that toe hurting, and your brain is running on, oh! I won't tell you what happened. Well, I'll tell you part of what happened. My wife was there, so she knows. She's giving me the look. But I somehow slipped in my kitchen and did an amazing split. Except I slammed my knee so hard into the kitchen, I don't know how to put a hole in the floor. And then in my frustration, because my wife was like, what are you doing? I literally slammed my hand on the floor and was, ah! And then my hand hurt. It was pretty stupid, I know. The reality is, I got up, and now my knee was bothering me. And all I could think about was my knee. And how did that water get on the floor that I was actually impressed that I didn't actually tear any muscles, that I was actually flexible enough to actually do a split. But, I mean, the reality was I was thinking about that the whole time. I couldn't stop thinking about it. That's how Paul describes the body. We're all these different parts. And they seem very innocuous. Who cares? Until you get a paper cut on your pinky finger, and then you stick your hand in your pocket, and it really hurts, and it's ridiculous, because you go, this is ridiculous. This little thing is causing so much pain. But guess what? The body is amazing, because that same digit, those same hands are the same hands that will cook a meal for someone, that will give somebody a hug, will shake somebody's hand, the smile that you give somebody. You see, we have a choice. And Paul is saying, you have a choice. God has given you a ton of gifts. Each one of us are different. Some of us can play the piano like Alex and sing. Some of us we're artists. Some of us are good at hospitality. Have you ever noticed, though, that when we're in the church sometimes, we shuffle people around and realize that they're doing something that they really shouldn't be? Sometimes we actually ask the person that's inhospitable to be the hospitality person, and you realize that's not a good fit for that person. Paul is telling us that we all have a specific gift. God has given it to us. And we should use it for that purpose, for God's purpose. It's not up to just the pastor. If you're waiting for the world to change from all the pastors that are up there, you're in trouble. You really are. That's really just not going to happen. We're only, first off, we're only human. And secondly, we're just like all of you. We have our own difficulties and problems. But Paul says in verse 3, Paul was given this grace. And where did this grace come from? It comes from God. And God has given every believer an expression of this grace through faith. Now, we don't all have the same degree. We all don't have all the same gifts. But everybody who's part of the church has a gift. You may not have discovered it yet, but it's there. And that gift is given to you by grace. The grace of God. So, what is Paul saying? He's saying, well, first off, everybody has the grace of God, but everybody has a gift because of it. Because of it, we can do amazing things. Not because we're so amazing, by the way, but because Jesus Christ is amazing. That's the reason why you have the gift. Have you ever noticed that? I know it says not to envy in the Bible, but every once in a while, I get a moment where I'm like, wow, man, that person can really play the piano. Oh man, that person can really do whatever it is that I can't do. And you realize they actually have a gift. We don't really think about it too much because we come to church, we hear a sermon, we say, oh, that was nice, oh, that's really good, okay. Yeah. And then we go home, and we do whatever we do. And we think that because we're in these four walls, that's it. I leave, I'm done. Check that box, I went to church. And I am at my devotional. Check. We check all the boxes and then we walk out and just like, nobody can figure out why we're not any different than anybody else. We're like, why? Here's the other thing that's interesting. Have you ever noticed? You go to a church, and people just criticize the pastor. How many people want to be a pastor? And nobody raises their hand. You ask a kid in school, so what do you want to be when you grow up? Very rare. Anybody goes, oh, I want to be a pastor. Unless they went to a Christian school and, okay, you know, I get it, but, and their dad is a pastor and their granddad is a pastor, but the reality is, most people don't say that. So we're in trouble if you're waiting only for the pastors to do this. God has given each and every one of us the ability to do amazing things.